Well, greetings and or salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the Far Reaches podcast. Yes, we are back once again for both our pleasure and hopefully some of yours, but let's be honest, mostly for ours. So if you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate that. Like and subscribe and share. If you're listening to us on any of the podcast locations that are out there, please also like and share. Or hell, I don't care. Dislike and share. The main thing is listen and share. So we're back again. This is, I think, episode 14 or 15. You think I'd know, but it just it seems one big giant party the whole time. So who's counting anyways? We are down a reacher for a few minutes. Alina is sitting in for Raleigh at the moment. Hey, Mrs. Bradbury. Raleigh just texted. He just got off the swather. He lost track of time and was trying to get a field finished up. So we can certainly understand when it's hay time that's going to happen. The rest of us casually leisurely around the house. But we're going to kick off here and get things rolling. And since we have the pleasure of having Mr. and Mrs. Bradbury, God, that sounds weird to say, doesn't it? Let's go ahead and start with your.
You're the priest. You should be used to saying it.
I know. Father McFeely strikes again. Yeah, but, it's just you only say it like once during the ceremony, and then it's over with. So.
Well, you were the first one that got to ever say it.
It's true.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Right here. Right in the heart. Right in the heart. Yes. I'll never forget the braiding ceremony. That was my favorite part.
Oh my gosh.
I think that was everybody's favorite, except for mine.
What do they do in a wedding where the woman's not taking the last name? Do they still say congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Bradbury, or?
Well, I think it would say now pronounced or give to you, Richard Bradbury and Lena Mouskowitz and yeah.
Got to work that out ahead of time, I guess.
I think that's one of the things you go through in the pre-round, like the scheduling and the practice round. I think it would. Are you going to take somebody's last name, or are you going to stick with Curran? What are you thinking, Joel?
Yeah, I'll stick with Curran.
Okay.
It'd be funny if somebody found out for the first time at that pre-ceremony meeting that she's not taking her name.
Yeah, you guys might want to talk that through.
Call it off.
Just saying. Yeah. So.
I now announce you, Lena and Richard.
Yeah, that's perfect. What's wrong with that? You two crazy kids got it from here. You figure it out. Yeah. I don't care what your checkbook looks like. So.
Yeah.
Interesting probing question though. Yeah, and a good flashback for me to the reunion and the joining, the braiding, the intertwining. Yeah.
My favorite part was that I know which hand is left and right, but my favorite part was looking down and I was putting Richard's ring on and he's got it marked for me. So it's perfect.
I think that was for both of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one thing I was most worried about.
Taking out the wrong hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I reminded him that I don't have dyslexia, but I know which hand and all that. So
you got to figure, See, it makes the L. That's how I taught my buddy in grad school.
Backwards to us.
Yeah. This little boy used to run around and have his rubber boots on the wrong feet all the time. I'm like, little hoser, come here. See this? So here's the L. That stands for left. And I did the same thing like on his boot. I'm like, you just line it up, brother, and you're good. Yeah, so. Yeah, take your own life lessons. Yeah, so. Well, let's continue. And the Bradburys, would you give us let's have the weekly update. How's things in your neck of the woods?
I was going to use my update I'll give a brief rundown since this week wasn't too terrible exciting, but.
Well, that's your opinion.
Since I got the bride here, I'll answer this dyslexia question since she helps me out a lot.
Oh, yes, that'd be great.
So, yes, I do actually have legitimate dyslexia, and I was one of the first people in the West Coast that they figured it out, that they diagnosed with it. So.
I did not know that.
Yeah, at the time, I think they thought about 1 in every 250 people had it. Now it's closer to 1 in every 5. Some sort of ADHD or dyslexia. So, but
maybe you read those numbers wrong.
Yeah, I might have. I read numbers all the time wrong. But no, so yeah, we went all up and down the coast and talked to experts. My mom did not want to accept that I had lazy eyes. So she anyways, but yeah, to this day, I still get rights and lefts, A's, B's, P's, Q's. If I get flustered,
Mhm.
I have to still, like, just a couple days ago, I was writing something by hand, and I had to double check with her and a person at the bar to figure out if it was A or B or D.
I've had to do that at the bar too. How old were you, Richard, when you were going through this diagnosis?
6th grade. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they gave me all sorts of tests, and
Are you taking notes on it?
Yeah.
What are you writing? What are you writing
yeah,
down?
I try to keep good notes so when I type up the description for the podcast, I don't forget like a lot of the obvious stuff. So which I always do. So I try to take notes. Yeah.
so anyways, I use a program called Grammarly, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I recommend it to even people that don't have learning disabilities for writing. And yeah, it's helped me immensely, especially with like learning grammar, like there, and there. And
Yeah, the tricky there's.
yeah.
No.
So
No.
Yours, and yours, and all that.
yeah. But then Elena, on the important things, proofreads it. Like the last article I did probably took half a day of proofreading and rewriting, and she's a trooper. She gets in there and helps me out. And then this morning, last 2 mornings, she proofread my post that went on LinkedIn. I sometimes throw it out there. You can tell when I'm not being supervised or proofread.
I usually find errors later and tell him, and then he has me go on real quick and edit for him.
Yeah, my LinkedIn poster can always under constant construction.
They're evolving, which is nice. They're a living document, really. I like it.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting for me, because Richard's been writing, I think, almost daily on LinkedIn, and just that practice alone, I've noticed he's really improved. Like every time I read, it's a little better, and there's not as many errors, and it's really neat to see that process.
That
and
is,
then
yeah.
If he takes a week off or something, then it's kind of worse. It's kind of interesting to see how that works.
Keeping the tools sharpened. Huh.
Luckily, I married a special ed teacher, so
You know, we all
she's been
thought
able
that
to
was,
straighten a lot of my life out.
I can't help this guy, but no.
it's good practice for you though too, Al. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you have that eternal goal you're working towards, and
You know, one that I've looked up a bunch of times, if you're good at right. So do you know the difference between effect and affect? I never know how to use it, and I've looked it up several times.
I think affect is an impact on something, and effect is an outside. So like if you're going to have a special effect versus an effect on something, but I confuse them all the time myself. Yeah, I usually just use a different word. That's what really helps me expand my vocabulary.
Well, that's something cool with this Grammarly. It's like machine learning, and like since I've been using it since 2000, and I wrote over 1 million words on it.
Oh wow, does it count? So it keeps a running tab.
Yeah, I've used it 90, I'm almost 100 straight weeks. But it has gotten progressive. It has learned in those years, and like I can write effect and affect, and it can pick out the context of it and correct it for me.
So it's sort of like predictive text to the
it's pretty cool. And I use it on my phone. It's there's an app that goes with your texting, and it'll correct it as you're writing. It's pretty cool. So, anyways, but the other thing, if you ever get an email from me, I have my ranch brand. I have the Desert Mountain logo, and then I have a little thing that says "Made by Dyslexia." So, UK is way ahead on like dyslexic stuff. As far as stuff's not a good word, but they have a thing called Made by Dyslexia, where they worked with, AP engineering. So there's a lot of Fortune 500 companies that are actively trying to find people that have dyslexia, because the way our brain is wired, we are able to pull information together from more random places and combine it into novel solutions. So they're beginning to find out, like they're starting the same type of program with autism. There's some places in the workforce where having dyslexia or autism can actually be a benefit.
Yeah.
At least that's the narrative that makes us feel better as people with learning disabilities. But yeah, it's Made by Dyslexia. So they came up with a really cool plan. So you stick this little thing called Made by Dyslexia in your email, and then people just know that if there's
So it's like
you got-
it's almost like
Yeah.
sometimes you used to see the tagline like this has been transcribed or something, and
yeah,
so that you know, like, okay, this guy, he's a dyslexic, that's why this is this, and
Yeah.
that's like when we first mentioned it. I said, well, yeah, I think it's a huge strength for you, and the way you integrate information and look at problems and situations, and I think it's it's been neat to know how you think and see what you come up with over these years.
This was a good example, but it might be common sense that I wasn't using one day. But we have our son has a car seat that is now facing forward, and it's pretty easy to move it around, adjust the straps. But for the life of me, I kept having to use a hanger or something to get the seatbelt to go behind the car seat. And Richard just lifts up the front of it and it just holds onto the seatbelt the whole time. I thought, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. So that might have been just a stupid moment for me and not really anything to do with.
But I don't want to take up Joel's time, but I do try and advocate for people and help kids that have it, especially like being a substitute. It's been really cool because you can see that, and like so I was able to structure my lesson plan so that more kids could participate, because it's not so you can make it more flexible so dyslexics or ADHD kids and those kind of kids can participate too. Education's very rigid and only sort of favors one type of I don't know how
I guess mindset. Yeah.
But anyways, I was visiting with a family here locally that I've known forever, and their kid was struggling, and I said, does he have dyslexia? And they said, yeah, we're going through the process right now. We think he does, but we don't know. I said, and this is another cool thing about Amazon. There's all sorts of little tools out there that a lot of people aren't aware of. But Amazon has developed a font that the letters are weighted in a way so that you can tell right from left if it's a B or a D or a P or a Q. Or so it's heavier weighted on one side. It's called Open Dyslexic. And you can download it on your Kindle app. So when you're reading, it just helps. It probably increases my reading speed by like 30%. Anyways, I told this kid about it, and they started using it, and like they immediately just by changing the font got to see huge improvements. And had I not, and I tell a lot of people about this Grammarly program, but that took me a lifetime to find all these little tools and tricks and stuff. So if I can help a kid that's 8, 9 find them earlier, it makes a huge difference.
And you have to be, I'm thinking back to when I was that age, and I had some problems I had to work through. It's like, it's so frustrating because you don't know why you don't know. It's like, I don't get this. Everybody else seems to. Why doesn't it make sense to me? And you don't know, like, am I just not smart? Is there something wrong? Can I do something about it? So to have somebody that's gone through it and be like, hey, try this, and then it shows some light, that has to be awesome for them.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting experience. It was a tough. I have an uncle that my great uncle was he got diagnosed after he found out that I was dyslexic, and he started at the University of Phoenix. And he was always really supportive of me, and said that he went high in education. He was a Cambridge scholar, but he said he struggled the lower the grade, the more he struggled. And as he went up through the doctorate, he got better. And as he got his master's, it was easier for him. As he got his PhD, it was easier for him. So by the time he got to running his own college, he pretty much, it wasn't a hindrance for him, but he had to overcome that without any tools and stuff.
And maybe not even knowing her.
Anyways, that's my dyslexic story.
Well, thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. I know there's several people that ask about that since I give you hell about it. So and
if anybody's curious or have kids that are curious, tell them they can just reach out. It's not a big deal. I have plenty of time for that kind of stuff.
Find Richard on LinkedIn or Alan's on Facebook, or email us or message any of us, and we can get you in touch with Richard. So any way we can help close that loop would be great. Mr. Curran, the hell's going on in your world, mister?
Another week in paradise. Let's see. This week I got to go golfing a couple times. Made it downtown for dinner on Friday night. Today did some outdoor work. Helped Brian's laying down one of those, those walls that people put up that aren't like cemented in or anything. They're just stacking blocks.
Like a retaining wall sort of thing?
Yeah. So I was helping him lay down some of that today. That's hard work. Those things weigh like 70 pounds a piece.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get that ground perfectly flat for the next layers. Jesus criminy, it was hard. I think probably only contributed for about an hour and a half before it was too hot and we had to quit and jump in the swimming pool.
Modern problems require modern solutions.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice little perk that you have the pool there to get into. But yeah, that's about it. I have a lot to do at work, and I still have a lot to do at work before the end of the day, Wednesday. Because then we're heading down to Sun River for a long weekend.
Oh yeah,
Gonna go down there.
Yeah, you're kind of like playing the role of Micah in Pendleton. Did a little bit of golf, went downtown, farted around a little bit. Now I got to get back to work. That's congratulations. You're doing well. Yeah.
It's a fun life. Except
it's not bad.
Yeah,
I recommend it if you get the chance.
It's weird being here for so long because it's weird not having your own place.
Yeah.
Like I have an apartment in New York, but I just haven't been there for so long. And if this continues much longer, how long can I be like a freeloader?
Well, I usually don't want to find the answer out to. So
I'm sure that you can find a lot of people that can counsel you on how to do it well.
I'll get you some suggestions offline. Yeah.
Might have to rent an apartment in Pendleton.
There you go.
Okay, well, I'm going to get off.
I was going to say, if you had any updates, Richard had some updates. Do you have any specific updates for the past week? Anything exciting you want to talk about? I saw you were at the Adel store. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I just started working at the Adel store. So
awesome.
Yeah, I'm cooking and doing gas and tending to people. So, yeah, it's fun.
Congratulations. Yeah, I didn't know you were working there. I thought maybe you just got volunteered for the day to sling some hats.
No, nope. I figured I could handle it, all I'm doing is once a week. It's not much, but.
Except for she's learning that it was 2 times this week.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be a week when you're not, you'd only do it once and it'll make it.
She doesn't understand restaurant code.
But hey, the tips aren't bad and the people are all right. So yeah.
That's not bad. Do you still have like just breakfast when you serve it, or is there like?
Oh. Yeah. No.
That was my favorite part. Yeah,
there hasn't been much early morning drinking yet. There hasn't been a festivity that requires it yet.
Oh well, damn. Well, something will break loose. Yeah.
But no, and the other thing I'm just gonna say real quick, because I've been busy with so I help with the social media for the Beatty Butte Wild Horses. Yeah. So I've been going out there and videoing and taking pictures, and sometimes I ride with Pete and Poppy around there and just get that out on Facebook and LinkedIn a little bit and Instagram and our website too. So
the Wild Horse program looks like it's going to get funded through 2025.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Could you guys give us a little more background on the Beatty's Butte program and how that kind of got started?
Yeah. You want to start? Or?
So the Beatty's Butte allotment is like the 19th largest federal permit in the United States. Mm-hmm. It's shared by Roaring Springs Ranch and 4 or 5 ranches out of Adel, Oregon. Runs about 3,000 head of cattle. Also has about 1,000 wild horses on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a desert, so the resources are precarious at all times. So even without the cattle there are times when the horses don't have any water. And so like when we're hauling water to the cattle, we're also hauling the water to the wild horses out there. But anyways, the horse deal in the West is a constant back and forth. But this program was made so that we could maintain the herd size at a certain level by taking younger horses into the program and then training them and rehoming them in the different parts of the United States. So that program started in 2016. So far, they've homed about 60 horses.
Yeah, and it's so how it worked. It's a partnership, so it's a nonprofit, and so it's ranchers, different community members that created this nonprofit, and they partner with BLM.
Okay.
And BLM is the one that got a grant to do this program. And it's doing so well that it looks like they're going to keep it going, but there's a little bit of a struggle with gathering directly from the Beatty Butte area, because there's a bunch of other areas that their populations are all high right now, and so priority and who's going to be able to be gathering and in the holding corrals, that's a big issue, right? Yeah.
So we're taking their horses too.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
for those of you who played along at home, BLM in this context stands for Bureau of Land Management.
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, it's a partnership with BLM. The interesting thing is the numbers are really fascinating. So those horses that are gathered off the ranges that go to sanctuaries or to government holding facilities over their lifetime cost the taxpayer about $50,000. So this program, nowhere near that. I think that the entire program hasn't gone over 300,000 yet and homed 60 horses.
Yeah.
So
outstanding.
Anyways, hopefully we can duplicate it in different places, or people can find variations of it that work and help some of these other permits in the United States that have wild horse issues.
Yeah. If it could be a template to kind of help her franchise, sort of get that kicked off, that would be great.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, glad you got to share a little bit about that too. I think it's a great cause and some good people are involved, and glad Al's busting a move on the social media presence too. That's been great to see.
And we have one of the horses, and
yep.
So yeah, he's coming along good. He's he acts just like any other horse. So that some people sometimes they get a stigma about horses off the range, and think it's completely unfounded. And I would say that at one time I was one of those people, but yeah, no, but it's they're good little horses, and they're very calm and gentle, and
most of them.
You can ride it.
Yeah.
Can you,
there's a lot of them are. It's amazing how many are just still in the valley that are working ranch horses now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the program, they try to get them at least 10, 15 rides with some experience. So like my horse that we have, they roped off of him a little bit, and then before I fully adopted him, I roped off of him too. So they get them through a lot of different experiences before they adopt them out. So yeah.
Outstanding. That gives them a good chance to hopefully be successful where they go.
And some people adopt them when they haven't been trained at all because they want to do that themselves. So it's varied. Yeah.
You want to take and bake pizza? Not a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alina. That was awesome. Yeah, I get a lot of following that on Instagram. I saw some of the founders had their a little gathering on the steps of the store the other day. It was good to see everybody there and who was involved, and some people I didn't know that were involved in it. So that was a nice surprise for me. So that's pretty cool.
Hopefully we got some good audio out of it.
Yeah. Hopefully so. So, let's see. Weekly updates for me. Not kind of actually normal for once, which is kind of nice. Had like a full week of work, some good projects I'm working on, some house stuff. I'm still thinning out stuff and selling things left, right, and center, and doing a lot of looking online for the next hacienda to be in the Florida area. So just working really, and it's been a nice week and shuffling the house around. A buddy came through town and he always liked my stand-up desk outfit that I had, so he talked me into that and some other things he took down the road. So yeah, I had to move the office. I'm upstairs now, so the background's obviously different than usual. But yeah, and then I'm an uncle, so swine flu had a little boy, so nice. I call him Fluito. Is what I call him. I think his real name is the hell is it? Witt,
yeah, W-I-T-T.
Yeah. So, but
they were down at.
What's that, Richard?
That's a great name.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Yeah, it was a great text to get at 1 o'clock in the morning. So shout out to Bill and Chelsea for adding one to the herd. And I don't think swine flu is definitely not calving easy, but everybody's good. So, yeah.
They were already out to dinner 5 days after that kid was born.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's
good.
tough.
Oh, look at that. Now I think we have joining us now, Swathmaster 9000, and a recipient of a recent haircut, I would say also.
Just got to
Mr.
get the
Bixby's
volume
coming
going.
online. He got it back to the homestead after swathering all afternoon and laying down some windrows, I'm guessing. So looks like he's getting his audio styled up and having a little snaggy snack. Yeah. Good day, Mr. Bixby.
How are we?
We're outstanding, my good sir. Sharp haircut, recruit. That's really nice.
It's actually been a while since I did that.
Yeah.
I don't think we without his hat on.
No, that's what it is. Yeah. Turn your volume up just a touch. I think people will actually want to hear you.
I doubt that.
Well, I mean, it's my story. I can tell it how I want.
I think my volume is up. Is that better?
Okay. You're coming in Lima Charlie. That's good. Yeah.
I gotta grab food. I'm not gonna be rude, but I'll be back. I'll be listening.
We'll wait for you. Yeah. No, go ahead. Yeah.
Have we started or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've had some good updates. Alina was sitting down with Richard. We were talking about the wild horse program that they're working on. And we talked about Richard's dyslexia for a little bit, kind of how that got diagnosed. And that sunshine? Yeah. What is this fiery orb in the sky?
Has he got a hat hanging off the ceiling?
It's the longest day of the year here, and it's sunny.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? 21st. Congratulations. Yeah, that is a hat too, Mr. Joel. Good eye.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my Germany Brothers printing hat.
Well, there you go. That's your sort of your uniform. Yeah. Oh.
That's right.
We had just gone around and talked about our weekly updates, and I'd given mine. I was the last person to go, so it was like perfect timing that you sat down. So if you want to bring us up to speed on some of the highlights of your past week, it would be wonderful, good sir.
Oh, wow. Mostly just getting field ready to put hay up.
Getting your hay on? Yeah.
Got some outside rounds down. Just kind of gearing up to go hard here for about 3 to 4 weeks.
Mhm.
So, we did go help a neighbor this morning brand some calves.
Oh, okay, nice.
Just kind of a Sunday fun day a little bit, but that got ruined by about 40 acres of hay I had to lay down. So
Yeah. Timing is everything. So
yeah, it is make hay while the sun shines.
absolutely.
So
We need to get Joel up there and do some swather time. I think he'd like to do some raking.
That'd be like
you for free labor, Joel, in case you haven't noticed.
what's that movie? Pauly Shore.
Son-in-law.
Son-in-law.
Yeah.
Son-
Majored in
Son-in-law.
communication for 2 semesters.
Yeah, that's right.
Haven't seen that forever and a day. Yeah.
Oh, it just reminded me of that of the guy, the guy's first time on the farm. You know,
All sorts of fun. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
It's like trying to feed the pigs.
Oh yeah.
That was my favorite movie when I was a little kid.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. It does. The
Pauly
fact
Shore is
that
a fine actor.
Buddy. Yeah. Totally.
The Weasel.
Weasel, yeah.
Has he ever? He hasn't done any movies for a while, has he?
No,
Not that I'm
I
aware
don't
of.
think.
Who killed Pauly Shore?
Is that the movie you did?
He did a documentary about his own life.
Oh, cool.
He has a really interesting life. His mother is Mitzi Shore, and she died, but she owned the Comedy Store in LA.
Oh no, that's why I knew that name. I'll be damned. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Interesting.
kind of how he got his start in comedy, because his father ran it, and then his father lost it in the divorce, I think is what the story is. But that's how he got stage time on the best comedy club in the world.
Yeah. Really kind of handy. Yeah.
Huh.
But obviously, if they really suck, they're going to boo you off the stage. So you have to have, I mean, it helps for sure, but you still got to do something.
Yeah.
Here comes a herd. Yeah.
Yeah. We're coming back from Father's Day dinner.
Outstanding. So just getting some hay down and things are rolling. How's the weather looking for you, Rawls?
Good right now. Looks like we got a good solid 10 days to 2 weeks of nice weather. There's a little blurb of moisture later in the week here, but probably be thunder showers, and it could amount to enough, So you kind of have to take what you get when you see that in the forecast, because sometimes it depends on which side of the mountain it breaks over.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Definitely. Yeah, some of the most in tune weather people are guys doing hay. They got the 10-day outlook down to the second, man.
yeah, you especially here, because we don't get the heat units like you will in a lot of places in the basin and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so every bit of good weather that you can get helps. They might have 90 to 100 over there, and we'll only have at best 80 to 85 if possible.
Yeah. Which is quite a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're talking about getting hay to dry, that's a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I always enjoy listening to the Rancher Weatherman, because that should be a segment, I think, on local TV, even like just the outlook. Like now we go to Steve out there doing some combining. I think it'd be good.
It's interesting you say that, because I think there's a general complacency in our society as to what goes on with our weather. We've become so in tune with our little microclimate in our urban areas, and I don't think it's not something people live by necessarily outside of agriculture.
For sure. Yeah. Like it might need an umbrella, but that's about the extent of the impact.
Yeah. Commercial fishermen, I'm sure it makes a huge impact, but that's agriculture. But
yeah, and they're still going to go fishing. Yeah.
Not a lot of industries that are affected by it.
That's for sure. Even construction, they work around it. They're through it.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting point, because there's certainly kind of the key to success or failure a lot of times. And that's why we're always looking for ways to mitigate that risk any other way possible, because, like I always say, Mother Nature's parents were not married, i.e. she's a real bastard. So, the more you can be in tune with that and make that choice,
it's
success or not.
In production agriculture, I'm sure there are other crops that affects. I just don't have my thumb on those, but it can mean a lot of money in the hay industry when you're talking, the basin, all their first cutting got rained on, so they're looking at $100 hay at the stack.
Yeah,
and they're getting $100 difference, but if there's dairy hay out there, they're paying $200 for it. So if you don't time it right and get your hay put up right, that could be a huge impact.
Substantially, yeah. Not many businesses are going to have 100% increase or decrease in what they're getting on something. That's based on the weather. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's an important pay attention.
I know in finance you have to pay attention to whether it's going to rain. So if you get caught in the rain with your slacks on, it's going to ruin your crease.
That's not good. Yeah.
Then you're just going to look foolish all day long. You look foolish.
You just got to sit at your desk and you scrunch your papers on your lap, so nobody notices. Yeah. Don't you have an extra pair of slacks at the office for such an occasion?
That's a good idea.
To me, I peaked already. It's done. Yeah. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and kick on to our movie thoughts and reviews. Now, I don't know. I didn't get a chance to watch every single moment of Lonesome Dove again this past week or so, but I watched most of it. Hopefully everybody else had a chance to at least get a refresher, because it was Mr. Bixby's turn to pick movie, and bless his little beanie heart, he went Lonesome Dove, and we talked about it a little bit. But Rawls, why don't you walk us through why that came to mind and what you got out of it?
I don't know. It's always, I'm sure for anybody that's watched it or lives a life in the country lifestyle, you have a connectivity to it. And it's certainly, most people I talk to, it's one of their favorite movies ever. And I guess what brought my attention to it last week was all the bullshit going on in the world right now, and in our country in particular. It's kind of a refreshing movie to look back at and see the simplicity of life and what life's really all about, and view it through the eyes of a person, say a Gus McCrae or Woodrow Call, and how black and white things were in those days compared to the gray area that everybody lives in now. Mm-hmm. And I think in my thoughts were that it wouldn't hurt anybody to look at something like that right now and get a little different insight on where we're standing today and a different perspective on how to view it.
Yeah, and I really appreciated the point of view also that they got a wild idea. And, come riding into town and talk them into hauling, loading everything up, and we're going to Montana. And so they kind of got this, like, if we got the grit and we were dumb enough to go try it, we can go do it. Even though we've never done it before, we don't really even know where we're going, really.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of chaos to get there, but that's what we're going to go do. We're going to go carve out our place and our path in another part of the world. Just go do it. And they just sort of decided it, called us, kind of pretty much does it. And Gus goes along like, yep. And then, Gus was really an instigator because it's all about the adventure for him. But I really like that point of view, is like, there's the opportunity is what it boiled down to. And they saw the potential and figure out a way to get there. It wasn't easy. It wasn't smart, but they got it done. And I think that's really what hit me extra hard this time, as opposed to the 108 times I'd seen it before.
Yeah, I kind of, as I was watching it, I was different scenes I was paying attention to see how they related to where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. There were so many comments that it's hard for me to pick one off the top of my head right now. Comments and scenes where it's like, okay, that's so relatable, but one in a satire way, and then the next scene it'd be like, yeah, that relates to what's going on in our world right now. And probably the one that hit me the most is when they go to San Antonio to find a new cook, and they whack the surly bartender.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how everything's changed since they were there.
Yeah.
And how much it was going to change ahead of them.
Completely. Yeah.
That was kind of a neat scene to reflect on when we're talking about where we're at today.
Well, yeah, and I think it hit me extra too when it's like, you're just mad he didn't know who you were, because of all the stuff that they'd done, and there's their picture behind the bar. So that was part of it. Like, look, don't you realize what we've all been through and what we've done? And I don't like where it's at now, because
I guess
I think that was interesting.
Part of that scene that resonated so much is where, you look at, for crying out loud, they just tore down a statue from the, what was it, General Grant's, somebody back in D.C. here this week. They just tore that statue down, and it kind of shows our ignorance and maybe our lack of history and knowledge on what it took to get to where we're at today. And here we are erasing it all. I mean,
we're trying. Yeah.
I realize the offensiveness that some of those things have, but take the good with the bad, and make that take the perspective that was a bad part of history. Let's not make that mistake again.
It's better now. Yeah, I think that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, when they roll into town in that scene, they actually walk right past the Alamo.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the Alamo in the background, and the Alamo is actually one of the locations where I think the Texas governor warned. There was some noise about people were talking about attacking it and burning it down.
It's heavily.
You're not going to touch the fucking Alamo.
No.
Yeah, it's heavy.
They issued a warning.
Yeah.
About the Alamo. They said if there's they before, just to get out ahead of it, they said that the Alamo would probably be the most protected place in San Antonio. So they could feel free to riot or protest, but they were
Yeah.
not. Alma was off limits.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. So
And
that's a
that-
great point, Joel, that those two cities connected like that in different parts of time.
It's so hard to keep track of all these statues they're trying to tear down because I don't even know why. Like you lose track of like what did this guy do? Like
I think
they're
a
all-
lot of it
they're all
is it's
responsible
just
for
a
something.
statue of a old white dude.
Well, Teddy Roosevelt in front of there's a big statue right in front of the Natural History Museum in New York that
Mhm.
it's a landmark for sure. It's enormous, and I just read today that they're willingly they said okay, we'll take it down. We're going to move it. Like, what did Teddy Roosevelt do? I thought he was a good guy. I don't know.
Yeah. I think. Well,
I-
I mean, like, I don't know. Nobody's perfect for one. I don't think you could like. There's never anybody that we've ever talked about that's been like good every single day of their life, their whole entire time. A lot of these people that they're getting torn down or defaced, like that's the fabric of our history. Like them or not. It's really, I think it's really crappy to have today's point of view and look back and judge about then. For one, like people do it all the time. Like, oh, you said this on Twitter 10 years ago. Now I'm going to burn you to the ground. You're like, I think A, words, B, happened a long time ago. C, it was a different world. And then you take that and multiply it by 1,000,000 when you're talking about a statue of somebody who was instrumental in good or bad, and where we're at today. And, tearing it down doesn't change what happened.
I would
Probably,
say that
if anything, sets the stage for something dumber to happen in the future.
TR would have been one of the first ones in Minnesota again to straight out the police station there.
Yeah.
He was. I think that they misinterpreted his passion for right and wrong and ethics, and I don't think in TR's world that kind of stuff would have flew. He would have been protesting right there with him. I mean, because he was so much about honor and
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I think that's backfiring now on. There's like the right wing people are pointed out that Yale is named after a slave trader from back in the day.
Mhm.
Now they're gonna make him change the name of Yale. It's just backfiring. They're eating their own is what they keep saying, right?
Yeah.
They're instigating all this, and now people are shifting their focus to them. They're probably shitting in their pants.
It's that whole, you point your finger at somebody, there's several coming back at you, for one, and hypocrisy knows no bounds, is two, and three, there's the original message, I think, that supposedly kicked off a lot of this stuff has been completely forgotten and wiped out and off the paper. And that's the sad part. Again, because I think there's numerous factions involved.
I don't believe it's even about an original message.
No, it's not at all. I think there were some things for that for sure, but yeah, like there was nobody saying like, deserved it, nothing wrong here. I never heard that, and I certainly didn't feel that way. But
And that they could fit into a narrative.
yeah,
And
I think so. It was the spark they were looking for. That everything was like, all right, hit the go button. So and like Richard so wisely said, though, like, but this shit comes up, it springs, it comes back, we come out of it, hopefully a little smarter and more educated and better about who we are. It just takes longer than you want. And I was talking to a friend the other day. We always have good spirited discussions about this kind of stuff, and I was like, I would really like to know how this compares to the 60s when there was a lot of shit going on. Like, when you think about the kids that got shot at what was that campus, Fort Ed in Ohio, like there was a lot of chaos going on. There was a war, there was protesting. I don't know how it compares, but it has to be pretty close, if not maybe even more crazy now. But I think as far as
I think the thing that we have now,
split, like the parents and the kids are at odds, and a lot of that. I think it's interesting to have those comparisons.
I think the violence was more. I mean, I think the hatred was greater.
Dan?
I mean, they killed Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, JFK, RFK, and trying to think, but
Yeah, that's a great point, Richard.
but just so everybody knows, one of the greatest podcasts just start back up, revisionist history. But in the first season, I think it is, Malcolm Gladwell goes back and he just takes a picture out of the 60s riots. There's a picture of a cop and there's a German Shepherd that's like biting at a black kid's face. But he goes through that and finds all the people that are still alive that were in that. And he distills it and gets the truth behind it. And like the photographer just was there, and the picture looks, I mean, what was going down was bad, but that cop wasn't trying to let that dog bite that kid. But it happened, and he come around the corner, and he caught the cop and the dog by surprise, and the cop pulled him back. And like they said, even the perspective, like the dog and the kid were not as close as it appears.
Yeah, but given the angle.
Yeah. Anyways, and the kid knew the cop knew the kid. There was this whole, but the picture so framed the moment that it just sort of took off. And just, I guess we see that, like, I don't know, with the statues coming down and stuff, but I do think that the violence and just from the stuff I've talked about was so much more palatable, so much more real in the 60s. I think that I don't think the hatred's there. I mean, like I've been in Texas, in places in the South where there's still that bigotry and hatred for, and I just don't see it anywhere else in the United States. Like the places I've seen it, it's like stomach turning. But
yeah,
I don't travel around and see it. Like I've seen guys that pretend that they're whites. I mean, I should try to hear very quick. They claim white supremacy, but I think when push comes to shove, most people don't have the capacity to have that much hate towards another human being.
I completely
There is places that I will not argue that there's not places where hatred exists, like that place in Texas where they drug that guy behind the pickup, and like what went down in Wyoming. I mean, I'm not saying that there's aren't little pockets where it's at, but I'm saying that you can travel across the United States multiple times and never. I have traveled to weird places in the United States, so most people are never going to be exposed to those type of places unless you're like just have to be there for a job. Like I've done Burning Man twice. I've never seen an act of hatred like you've seen in the 60s. I haven't even seen an act of hatred in Burning Man. That's 60,000 people like you see that's happening in Seattle and that kind of stuff. So yeah. I think it just builds on itself. And we were fine before this all went down, and it's actually getting worse. It's sort of, we're stoking this flame, and yeah,
that's the sad part.
Woodrow would be disappointed and probably have to can some people and go shoot somebody.
Definitely ride up on his horse and knock the crap out of somebody with a branding iron. Yeah. I don't tolerate rudeness. Yeah.
That was another thought of mine in that show is that there's a certain respect that I feel like in those days people had to have, because it was kind of an eye for an eye in the Old West. And now there's so much gray area that generally I don't think people have a whole lot of respect for each other, just because there is not that code, so to speak. I mean, you stubbed your toe back then and you could be on the end of a hangman's noose. I mean, you look at their pal that they worked with. I mean, all those years, and
they hung Old Spoon. Yeah.
And hung Spoon. I mean, it kind of, it resonates with me, especially that part of it where you look at the law today and what's happening to them through all this. You can get away with murder now, and back then you were hung for it. You know, I don't see anything wrong with the way they used to do things on a lot of those levels, personally, but I don't know. I think that there's a a huge amount of disrespect that we have in today's world for law and order and what comes with that.
I think a lot of it too is how disconnected we are from each other and from the world. If you look now, we have our sources of information that are saying one thing and we think something else and other people do. I think if you look back then, it was what you saw. You knew what you knew. People talked directly. There was no mass distribution of information in that regard. So it was like you're pretty much on your own at all places, really. And you had those little microsystems like you were talking about where we're all here. We know what it is and what's for, and that's just how it's going to be. And I think that's the advancement of where we are has led to that, where there's a lot less interaction and people are much more willing to talk crap online when they know you're never going to see anybody and it's just fun to stir the pot and walk away.
Absolutely. But when you committed a crime, then there were consequences.
Yeah.
There's no consequences today. I mean, yeah, certain things there are. I guess it just seems like it's a pretty cush life to go sit in a prison cell and have HBO and three hots and a cot,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pretty plush, and there's a reason why people become institutionalized and want to go back. I mean, it's not. I guess my thoughts are if you're gonna do the crime, you're gonna pay for it. I mean,
I would agree, but I also think it's pretty jacked up that if you go to jail or prison or whatever and you come out and do your time and you get out, that it's still held against you. And it's still a deterrent to go do the right thing. Then on, like in my mind, like, okay, yeah, I screwed up. I did 10 years. I'm out. It should be okay, probation, but it should be off your record in my mind. Like, I think if you prove up that you made a mistake, but you're coming back, you should have your time and you should be able to go back to being a regular citizen, I think.
You want to know that something ironic about the hiring felons? It was one of the first major corporations in the United States was to get rid of the not hiring felons or even looking at criminal record in the hiring process was?
No.
Coke Industries.
Say again?
Coke Industries.
Oh, no kidding.
Even Koch brothers.
Yeah.
Were the first ones to get rid of they don't do background checks anymore on people.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I did my time, man. It's over with. That's why I serve it. And then it's done, I think. And I think it certainly, it's not the only reason that people go back, but it certainly can't help that if I get out, that I have all this stuff stacked against me. I can't vote. I can't do this. And it's instantly a deterrent for me to get my shit back together. Because we've all done stupid stuff, and by the grace of God, the sharp stick, we got away with it. And I'm not saying it's because we're white or black or orange, but like everybody does wrong. Everybody gets away with it most of the time, but you get caught once and it can be the end to everything forever that you do. Because when you do your time, when you get out, you're still paying for it. And I think if you got the time, it should be done. Now, if you screw up again, probably going to put your nuts in a ringer. But I think you get that one chance to prove up and go do right again. I think that's how it should be.
Makes sense.
I have some thoughts about it, but I'm not sure how it connects. But people are not committing crimes, but they're committing like these violations of new social norms, and maybe they even violated it before it became a social norm, and then they get canceled, is what they call it. And the thing that's coming up now again, a lot in the comedy world, and I think what happens a lot is people are looking for a mistake made by one person, and then they can marginalize the entire group of comedians. So like, Twitter's back at it again this week, trying to cancel Joe Rogan and Joey Diaz. I don't know if you guys know who Joey Diaz is, but awesome comedian. And like, so they can't, which is hilarious because these guys make their own money and they do their own thing. And I think that it's just frustrating to watch people try to do it for something that they joked about. And I think it came up obviously because a couple days before that was the Chris D'Elia thing with him contacting underage girls on social media, doing some really creepy shit. But they just want to, and then it gets like amplified by upcoming female comedians who are, they're just clawing for stage time, and then they make a bigger deal out of things like what Joey Diaz and Joe Rogan do to try to elevate themselves above them. And it's sort of like a Wild West sort of legal system in a way.
Don't you think that the reason that Joe Rogan's such a big target is because he's absolutely accountable to no one? I mean, it doesn't matter what he says. It's the fact that it's going to be really hard to find leverage on him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure there's some skeleton in the closet that maybe somebody will dig up eventually, but he's pretty transparent. Has been. His podcast has been on since 2008.
Yeah.
He just cut a huge deal with Spotify. I don't think they're going to back out of it. I mean, he brings 20,000 listeners. You can't even buy Fox to get 20. I mean, not 20,000, 20 million. You couldn't buy Fox, CNN together and bring that many listeners to one single media source.
Mm-hmm.
He can't be bought. And like Spotify didn't buy him. They just licensed him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, just come play over here, dude. That's all. Yeah, just play here.
Yeah.
Well, they hate him just because he go ahead, sorry.
The only conversation he's had with Spotify since he made the deal was they called him up to see what guest he was going to have first.
Yeah. He's like, what? Go away. Yeah. What was that, Joel?
Oh, they just hate him because he's had some guests on in the past, like Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos, and people that the left really hates. They think that just because they keep going back to the word platform, they're giving them a platform.
Yeah, but that's
the whole concept.
Everybody should have a platform.
Studying people up. Yeah.
Like, I don't care. I mean, that's what I like about Rogan. If he finds somebody interesting, he'll have them on. He might think they're dumber than a sack of hammers or full of shit, or you'll probably tell him too. But like, that's the hypocrisy of this whole thing we're going through right now. Like, you're screaming at this guy to cancel because he gave somebody a platform that somebody doesn't necessarily agree with. Guess what? That's going to happen, man. You're going to get offended in life. It's okay. And you can scream all you want about it too. Just don't expect anything to happen. I'm sorry, because the next week it might be somebody you completely agree with. But the shoe's on the other foot and more people are screaming about what you're saying now. Think about that. So, it all comes back around. So I'm always about like, hey, man, nobody forces you to listen. And I think crazy opinions are good. I think that's how we got this great country, is because people would disagree or like, hey, man, that's completely jacked up. But a lot of people think that way. Let's talk about it. And that's the genesis of this moronic podcast that we do, because we're similar in a lot of ways, but we definitely have different thoughts on stuff. And that's the whole point, is that we can sit down and talk about it. Like, well, you're cut off the show. Good day to you, sir. What the hell good does that do? And, that's why I think it's great about Rogan is A, yeah, he's not beholden to anybody. And B, he's willing to talk to people just because they've got something to say. If they got a little thought behind it, he's going to listen. He's going to ask them questions. And he's going to be like, huh. Yeah, like he's had people talking about Bigfoot, for God's sake. It's like, that didn't make me stop listening. Like, I can listen to the podcast or I can skip over that week if I'm not interested in the topic. So that's what's really just driving me apeshit about what we're going through now, is somebody disagrees, or God forbid they have a different political opinion, and you're going to try to just completely shut them down because they don't agree with you. That's not how we work. Sorry.
I haven't thought about that, and this is probably pure speculation, but we live in a world where we don't have to agree with anybody but what we see on our phone.
Mm-hmm.
And we're completely drug around by what we see there. And every one of us sitting right here has been guilty of spending a day on the couch not doing anything but fucking with that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And nope. but the divisiveness that we see amongst people not being able to agree on things is that as long as we have that, we all are right about something, it seems like. And I'm not generalizing, technology and saying that it's a bad thing necessarily, but I think it's something that we need to kind of overlook and get back to square one where we can have these conversations and be able to talk to each other about stuff. It's so easy to just take that thing, formulate your opinion, and that's done. There's nobody arguing back with you on that thing. And it's not that we have to argue, but nobody's saying right or wrong. It's obviously the gospel because I saw it on freaking Facebook.
Yeah.
In our society has become puppets to their phone, really. I mean, because we kind of just sit around and let that thing dictate what we do for a lot of society. I mean, there's no outside the box thinking, and people don't have the independent mind to go have their own thoughts anymore because their independent minds have been persuaded by bullshit that shows up on there. I mean, 9/10 of the stuff I see on that thing is just a bunch of pandering BS, in my opinion. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why I do this to myself. I'll wake up in the morning and open up Twitter, and just within 3 minutes, I'm pissed off about something. Like, that's no way to start your day.
I don't want to be a this, but I almost feel like some of that this day and age is by design.
Yeah. Oh, I guarantee you that. Yeah. I guarantee you that. It's so you'll click on it, so you'll share it, so you'll rant about it, so you'll be at that point of view. And that's the other thing is everything. I think about this a lot, where we used to be able to kind of spot the bullshit. Like you could spot a doctored photo. It was pretty easy, You could spot the fake story. These days, every day that goes by, sweet Lord, you just have to not believe anything because it's all twisted and all like Richard was talking about that picture of the dog. Depending on when I show up and what kind of picture I want to take, I can get almost anything I want. Like if we just take any sound clip out of what any of us say, you could probably put it together and we'd all be pretty good or pretty bad. So that's definitely leads to the phone. And I get you get that weekly, at least on the Apple products, Richard, you get the weekly screen time usage. It shows you like how much time you fucked off on your phone. And I'm always just like, oh, that's the last thing I need to be like. That's a new goal for next week is I want it to be down. Like my last week, it was down 38%. My screen time was down 38% last week. And I was like, and that's not near enough,
This conversation brings me back to the movie again. And two different times we watched Gus wander off by himself and go chase down Lori Darlin or go be independent on his own and do everything. And you saw the scene of Captain Call sitting up in the mountain there in the saddle, and all the cowboys were saying, well, he sure was worried about where Gus is. Well, we don't have those struggles today. Like if Richard's broke down in Adele, I can call him on the cell phone,
most of the time. Yeah.
And I think that's the disconnect that we have lost with our own ability to communicate is most of us don't even know how to communicate with ourselves, change a flat tire for that matter. I guess that's kind of my thoughts behind that movie was, and I don't know, that people aren't people anymore. They're puppets.
Plus that independent, like, I'm just going to go do that. And I don't need anybody's permission. I don't need anybody's input. I'm going to go do it and make the best. And, like even Roscoe Brown could find Texas, like I'm moving pretty fast. There's no maps. There's no, even poor old Roscoe could point the right direction.
Absolutely.
I think that's a large part of it is that sense of independence is probably, it's been beaten down out of us, I think. So I think it's often
Dude, speaking of independence,
tied with
have any
toxic masculinity, I think. So
of you guys seen this new show on? Well, I don't think it's new because they're in the 6th season now. But I would just watch this season of a show called Alone on
yes,
Netflix.
I just watched that. Loved it.
Those guys and girls, like, they are incredible.
That was
They go
amazing.
up in the middle of nowhere in the Arctic in a harsh environment, and they build these awesome cabins by hand. And they're like, well, I'm going to need some fat. So they go out and get fish, and they take the skin off the fish because they know somehow that there's fat in the skin, and they know the amount of stuff that those people know. I was just like, one woman, like, she needed vegetables or something, or I don't know, whatever, fiber or whatever. So she took the rabbit she killed and she took all the stuff out of its intestines
Yeah,
and boiled it and ate that. It was insane.
it was a beautiful show, and I got to thinking back how I grew up, and like I was 12 or 13, I think, and I would go camping by myself if my buddy couldn't go, and I would go up in the mountains and camp. Sometimes he'd come with, sometimes he couldn't.
We probably
Yeah,
stopped
I was
at
watching
Safeway
that,
before
judging
you
their
went, right?
shelters. But what'd you say, Joel?
So you probably stopped at Safeway before you went up there, right?
No, it was about 17 miles to Safeway. So, it was like I'd ride my motorcycle or up in the back pasture, and then they would get to the base of the mountains, and I would camp up there on a logging road. But yeah, I was 12 or 13 by myself. We obviously went as a family and group, but then after that, it was pretty much free for all. There was one summer I spent the entire summer camping out at Snag Lake, or just down from Snag Lake, and I was working at the ranch at the beginning of the canyon. So I'd work at the ranch, I'd ride my motorcycle up the canyon, work on the camp out. Every 3 or 4 days, I'd swing by the house and take a shower and let my parents know I was alive and steal some food and go back up the canyon. And then, yeah, one of my buddies would come stay for a while, and then another one, but I had a camp all summer long. It was the best thing ever. But that was an amazing show. I love that show, and I need to see the other seasons. But they had the guy that won was on Rogan a couple weeks ago, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I want to listen to that.
Yeah, because one guy there was like down to 3. Spoiler alert this for everybody. They were kicking ass, and one guy's poor shelter burned down. Like, I think he had a really good chance to win, but that sumbitch went up in flames at 1 o'clock in the morning, and all his gear and everything. Like, he barely got out with his survival phone and was able to call help. But it was like 2 degrees outside, and his cabin burned down. It was pretty craptacular.
Yeah, the little things, like the one guy that ended up winning, he's like, well, Wolverines keep getting my meat. So then he built like a 20-foot tall platform and a ladder one afternoon.
Yep. Left the ladder up there one time. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys,
guy's awesome.
Raleigh, if you guys had a chance to see it yet, but it's on Netflix. It's called Alone. It's really good. It's like what I thought Survivor was going to be like when it first came out.
No, that's what I was thinking it was. So I've been ignoring it.
No, it's
no, these guys are legit. Like they like go hunt squirrels, and like they see a squirrel up in a tree probably 30 yards away, and they nail it with their bow.
Everybody gets 10 items that you can bring, and you get dropped off, and they drop you off, and they come check on you like every 10 days. I think you get a medical check, but it's you and your thoughts, and that's what people talk about that a lot, and I think that leads to this very well about just being alone with your thoughts. I think that's why meditation is so good and enlightening and like refreshing, because that's what it is. It's you and your thoughts, and you can call it meditation, you can call it whatever you want, but if you don't take like just 5 or 10 minutes a day, just shut everything off and just close your eyes and like just think, I feel bad for you. I really do. I don't get to do it all the time, but that's one of the best parts of my day when I just get to do that.
That sounds like a normal day all day.
What's that?
I said that sounds like a normal day all day.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I know. No kidding, man. You're spending some swather time? Wow. My mind has been all over the place, and I'll have 19 songs run together and 15 names and all sorts of inventions and adventures. And yeah. Basically on autopilot. Yeah.
Same with cattle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that as back to Lonesome Dove.
Yeah.
Sort of the technology and everything is I think that we like Lonesome Dove because the yin and yang of Gus and Woodrow,
Mm-hmm.
or Gus Woodrow, because it's virtue and vice.
Yeah.
And they work because they have that balance. And on all the, if you don't look just at Lonesome Dove, if you look at it all the way through, like, what's the one where he takes Woodrow back or Gus back?
That's Return, I think.
That's Return. So that's the whole entire thing is completely just one accident after another, and he doesn't have Gus to balance him. So there's no real silver lining to that story. And Commander Moon doesn't change until Woodrow shows up to help Gus.
Yeah, true.
Gus pursues him forever, but has no luck. And only does he have luck when Woodrow shows up. They're not the balance of the character. They're one character.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good way to look at that.
But if you look at it, so that's what's out of balance with our society is seems to be everybody, because of what technology allows us to do. It allows us to just show our virtues. Whereas before technology and all the social media and where you frame your own, how the world views you, your perception, you just show your virtues. Very seldomly do you show your vice.
Yes.
So you're not showing that yin and yang of yourself. And I think that's probably causing a sort of a collective, the miasma of everything is because we are weighted way too heavy in the digital world towards just virtue. And we forget that we ourselves even block out that we have vices but you need that. It's like you can't have, like San Francisco back in the 50s, they didn't work out with, like Hollywood didn't work with Reno because they didn't have any place to go get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
They have a little place where they could go off and have the sin and the virtue and the vice and everything. Anyway,
that's what everybody's looking for, the vice of somebody now too, because there's just this virtue fence that's put up, and so they're picking at it, looking for the vice, and then it's all hell breaks loose, and you're like,
probably because we know it's supposed to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that too, like this is the greatest gift to mankind. This is all the information in the history of the world. And all these all together generate more than the history of the world before they were invented. So every day we're virtually recreating the entire history of the world.
Mm-hmm.
This is the greatest gift to us, but we just need to learn how to be responsible with it. It's like I'd say, with great power comes great responsibility. We are pretty shitty at our responsibility with these things. And we'll get it figured out, but
it's going to be a while.
This doesn't go back in the box.
No, this toothpaste is out of the tube, man. Like, and I always say, like, it's kind of sad that at this point in time, we have more information available to us than at any other time in history. And I think a lot of us are the dumbest sumbitches to ever walk the face of the earth at that very same time, and so, yeah, I think we're probably trying to use a hammer to brush our teeth with. If you want to talk about tools, it's like, you're going to get it figured out, but it's going to be painful. So. Yeah, I love how excellent job on the movie, Raleigh, and how it just sort of winds back and forth between now and then, and certainly has brought up some interesting points about even what's going on now because of then, and vice versa. It's certainly, I think, probably one of the more unique movies that could do that, and still be highly entertaining in my mind. Little things like we're packed. Just.
Yeah, people who like that show love it. And I was reading. Did you guys ever read that book about who were the Cowboys, the Buckenhorse brothers? The Wright brothers.
Oh yeah.
There's a book about them. I think it's called The Last Cowboys, maybe.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
And they just talked about it in a couple parts in the book, and they watch that movie like once a week on the road. That's how they pass their time going
Yeah.
from one rodeo to the next. Really good book, though, if anybody wants to read it.
If you ever want to see something funny, Google book The Last Cowboy. There's probably 300 of them.
Well, I just pictured, and I really mean it this time. Yeah, that's what. That's pretty good. I like it.
Maybe someday that'll be Raleigh.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The first, won't be the last cowboy with the first balls.
I always wonder what kind of ego the person that has that wants to be the last cowboy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what? That's too much pressure. Like, did you screw it up that bad? Nobody else can be a cowboy ever again? What the hell, man? Well, thanks for nothing. Yeah.
Speaking of cowboy, and Yellowstone's going to start here pretty soon.
Oh, you're trying to nudge us along?
Yeah.
Okay.
Season 3 premiere.
The week we have a 6-hour movie to discuss, and fabric of society is waving before our eyes, and you're worried about watching the movie in DVR. Yeah. So, but I appreciate your enthusiasm and openness.
Oh, blowing up and rerouting the river works for all problems, though, doesn't it?
Turns out, yeah. Sometimes it's not a bad idea. Yeah, I don't think I finished season 2. I need to go check that. I need to get caught up on Yellowstone, but yeah.
I was thinking that since you were talking about The Last Cowboy, I was wondering if we've had the last roundup. Because we're now canceled.
I've chosen to ignore that. Because
we just voted to have ours.
What's that?
Lake County just voted to have theirs.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Maybe I can go to Lakeview again this year.
When is that one? I'll go down to that.
Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
We set up my teepee up in the parking lot. I did it this year. It was awesome. Yeah, it's a great place. You have dry camp for like $3 a day or something. It was perfect. All as well.
I've never been to dry camp in Lake County. How'd that go?
Well, I didn't have any toiletries, but everything else was certainly running. Yeah, so not that sort of dry camp, Richard. Come on. Yeah. Taking on my words. Yeah. No, it was wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, it's Scraps and me and the range teepee and McDave and my cousin. It's pretty stellar. Yeah. I don't know, Rawls. I don't know. I was disappointed. I've not officially dealt with it yet. I'll put it that way. So
I'm not sure what.
How many millions of dollars is that?
Plenty.
I can't even imagine. It's 10 or 12 days long total with.
Over or under 50 million.
It's got to be substantial. Yeah, I don't know what the number is. Like I said, I'm still in denial, and I'm not really acknowledging it to anybody yet. So that's my point of view. I'm being 12 years old about it.
I bet Lakeview's at least 10.
Is what? Say again?
I bet Lakeview generates at least 10
what?
million.
You think?
Maybe 6.
It's substantial, whatever it is. Yeah.
So hard to calculate because all the businesses that lose out on their revenue. I guess they'll know next year better, right? You can subtract 2019 from 2020.
I think if any rodeo knows the economics, I'd say the Pendleton ones. Probably that, Stampede, and Cheyenne, the Calgary Stampede. Probably Houston. I think Houston. The Houston rodeo not being there was upwards of 100 million.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's a conservative estimate. I heard way more than that even when it first came out. So, yeah, I'm not acknowledging that yet. It's my world, and that's
is Houston rodeo kind of like an amateur hour deal? Because all I know about it, what I read about it, is music related, and the musical acts they bring in are ridiculous. They're like bringing, I don't know, Pharrell or something.
I depends on they cater
it up.
They've got a Latino day and night, and they've got African American day and night, that where all the cultures of Houston come in and can have their day with their entertainer, and they pack the
It's a real
rodeo.
community deal.
Yeah, it's I've been there, and there's nothing amateur about it. It's actually quite a spectacle. It makes Pendleton Roundup look like an amateur hour on it, but
Houston.
I guess,
Yeah.
I guess like an authentic rodeo experience is a better word than amateur hour. It doesn't seem as authentic with like all the fake country that they bring in. And
no.
No, it's all real. But like you think about like how big Houston is, they basically have their mega version of Roundup in Houston, and Houston's huge. So
I think
down 17,000 people, and Houston's I don't know how many million. So
you've got a Pendleton's a very historic, traditional, taking you back to the roots of where rodeo actually started. Houston, more than just a rodeo. I mean, it's a stock show, and they sell animals there for $500,000 that those kids raise. I mean, it's the scale is interesting, to say the least.
yeah, it's hard to fathom. Really.
Yeah, if you've been around rodeo and you want to see something, go to a Houston or a San Antonio, and they're big, they're long. I mean, they rodeo every day for 2 weeks, and Pendleton's a 4-day rodeo with a couple slacks on one hand, but it's certainly a league of their own. I mean, they weren't a part of the PRCA for a long time because they didn't have to be.
Exactly.
I would say compared to Denver International or Houston, Pendleton's cozy.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to, and Calgary's relatable to Pendleton, but it's so much more. I mean, when you go there, there's a whole different. I guess they all have their own interesting.
Oh yeah, they have their impact and their uniqueness to where they're at.
Yeah, Pendleton's small town is a large scale small town rodeo, and it has that small town atmosphere still. You go to those things, and it's like walking into Madison Square Garden for you, Joel, and watching the Knicks play.
They're gonna start doing rodeo at Madison Square Garden.
They were supposed to
in like a year or two.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, they're this year.
Yeah, maybe this year.
Chris Ledoux has a song about riding in Madison Square Garden.
I think of the title though.
I forget what it is, but.
Well, speaking of titles, Raleigh, do you have our? We're going to wrap up Lonesome Dove, and we'll probably revisit as we move forward just how much it continues to parallel with society. But do you have the Far Reaches Word of the Week ready to go? And
I do, and this one. So Kel was riding with me in the Swather today, and we had the radio on listening to music, and there was a country song came on, and it talked about a squire, SQUIRE, squire.
It's a Tyler Childers song, Country Squire.
I'd never heard it before, and both of us were like, "What is that word?" And so we found it to be pretty interesting. You guys got any ideas?
Well, squire would be like it's almost like a royalty sort of designation at some points, like Squire Danaher, if you recall from The Quiet Man. It's also a station wagon, Country Squire, with a model of the station wagon, if you want to go from that point of view.
I thought it was the person that assisted the knight. That was like a night intern.
There's several different definitions for it, and
shield
Richard,
bearer or armor bearer of a knight.
Yeah, and then there's also a man that's devotedly attends to a lady. There was also an American version that had to do with a keeper of the peace, so to speak. Or a not a judge. There was, I forget off the top of my head.
A magistrate or justice of the peace, a local dignitary, an English country gentleman, especially a chief landowner of the district, or a young nobleman attendant upon a knight ranked next below the knight in feudal hierarchy. Yeah.
No, it doesn't really. It wasn't a word that related to anything in particular. It was just kind of interesting that when
you don't hear too frequently.
Sitting there and I thought, well, that's an interesting word. I'll bring that one up.
I like it.
So, yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you're here. And
what's that?
Say again, Joel.
I was just saying, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that you're hearing Tyler Childers on the radio, though. All his albums are excellent, but he's not typically like the type of country singer that makes it too popular.
I wouldn't say that Wallowa County's radio station's popular radio, but there is a lot of red dirt music played on it.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, good deal.
That's a great point. I don't think about that. Yeah. Yeah, it's often said too, like you were squired about town. Like in the 50s, it was popular. So-and-so was squired about town by blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So a very diverse and word that's kind of shifted and changed. You know, if it started in the Knight and Kingdom times and still somewhat today. Yeah.
Relevant somewhat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not something you hear every day. And of course, hearing it in a song kind of makes you go, huh.
Yeah. I love it.
What are they referring to? So
well done.
Yeah.
Oh, we do have so we're gonna have a couple of things of reader mail, and then we'll do best thing of the week, and then does Joel or me have movie next? I can't remember who it is.
I think I do this week.
I believe. Yeah.
Good. That's what I thought. So reader mail. I had a nice email thanking Raleigh for recommending. I think it was Stableman's, the boot store you recommended in Pendleton.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to thank you for making that recommendation because some folks were listening to the podcast driving to town, not in Oregon, or actually the farther side of Oregon, and decided to buy a pair of boots based on what you said. So they wanted to pass along the thanks and the recommendation. I was like, well,
okay.
Look at that. That's commerce in action right there. So
I'm glad to see Richard get the business.
Yeah. So tell him Raleigh sent you. Yeah. So we had carryover reader mail from last time about Richard and his dyslexia, and so we addressed that at the beginning. He talked about it with Lena and how they kind of help. They partner with each other and make Richard's writings all that they are. So he really gave a lot of credit to Alina for helping him tackle what he does and some of the great programs he uses. So that was some of the high points for sure on the
very cool
reader mail. So everybody out there, thanks for sending those in and keep them coming. We always enjoy them, and I'm still getting better at getting them in one spot when they show up. So
of course you're gonna move now. So
what's that, Richard?
Of course you're gonna move now, so that one spot's gonna be somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the people by my house are gonna find this wall with a bunch of random stuff written on it. So we're gonna swip around. We're gonna do what we learned and then best thing of the week, and then that should get us wrapped up. So, Mr. Joel, why don't you take us off with what we learned, my good sir, or what you learned, I guess, not what we learned.
I guess just today, I'll just go back to like the laying those bricks for the wall. I didn't know how complicated or hard that was, making the ground level.
Yeah.
Making everything add up. So quick and easy thing I learned, but not quick and easy thing to do.
New appreciation for that skill. Yeah. Perfect. Richard.
Plugging away at my real estate exam. So I've learned a lot of stuff I'll never use again.
Oh, that's beautiful.
No,
Raleigh, you got anything else, Richard, or were you just thinking?
No, I guess I had a very busy week. It feels like it was busy, but a lot of the same old stuff, so I haven't really learned much.
No.
So
Well,
a lot of sitting in front of the Oregon real estate exam, you have to log all 150 hours, and so I logged about 40. So
substantial
yeah,
week.
not much time to do much else.
Yeah, I'd say. Yeah. Rawls, what you got for us? Any cooking tips, or what are you thinking?
Well, I'm making some tacos here.
Outstanding.
Typical when you're out all day and you get home, you're still starving. But let's see, what did I learn? Learned a lot this week, really, but some of it's mentionable, some of it's not.
Knowing which is probably the best thing you could learn of all.
That's for sure. Yes. Probably just prepping for the haying right now. You know, your schedule ranching jumps from winter to summer. Obviously, you've got your seasons thrown in there, but then you've got your haying and you got your cow work and you got everything. Not that you want to put off anything, but it seems like some of the equipment type of things get put off until the weather's good and prior to haying rather than doing it in the fall. But then you've got cow work to do and you're feeding. And I think getting my hands back on some wrenches and some grease and whatnot kind of made me start thinking that it's easy to just want to do the things you like to do when you're ranching, but you learn a lot when you start doing the things that you don't necessarily like to do, and and you learn what you can and can't do, and so working on equipment, and I've had a backhoe that's had some issues, and I couldn't get it figured out. And as Richard was saying a little bit ago, those devices we have everything we need in the palm of our hands, which is, there's a lot of good to become of those things. And that I was able to take something that I don't enjoy doing and become successful at fixing it and making it work right. It's not every day we test ourselves on the things that we don't like to do. And I learned that I'm not any smarter than I used to be. I just applied myself in the correct way and got something done. So that's what I learned this week.
I freaking love that, what you said about you learn a lot when you do things you don't like to do. And that's freaking brilliant because it's so true. And I'll grind on myself because I'll avoid doing something because I don't like it or I don't maybe know how.
Right.
And that's when I stop. I'm like, you big dummy. Like, you can figure it out or have somebody else do it. I think you should just go figure it out. And it's that doing stuff you don't like to do. I think it's too easy to not do it. And so I really appreciate that statement. And actually, as you can see, I wrote it down. So I appreciate that. What I learned is I spend still too much damn time on my phone every day, not really doing productive things with my phone. And I'm going to continue to whittle that down and set aside more time just to think. From watching that Alone show, I watched the whole season over the weekend. And the thing that kept hitting me was how good it was to spend time alone with your thoughts. And I don't do that enough as I used to, for sure. And so that's something I've learned, and I'm going to make more of a priority, I guess, is doing that. So hopefully I'm not hunkered in the backyard eating rabbit guts in 2 weeks, but I think there's a chance me spending alone time with my thoughts, but I think it's healthy. And I think we all need to do a bit more of that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, kids, let's finish up with best thing of the week, and then we'll get Joel's movie picks, and we can get that to the world and get this one in the box. So I'll start with best thing of the week. A couple things. Little baby flu coming into the world. Thought that was pretty cool. So Fluito was fun. And then for me, it's just having like a great solid work week. And then a buddy came through Friday. We hung out. He stayed the night here. We got up early Saturday. He bought some office supplies I was getting rid of and loaded his truck and headed him out for bear. So it was just good to hang out and get some progress that way too. But really just a nice, solid work week and things moving in the right direction and kind of paddling the boat like I wanted to. So it was nice. Richard.
Best thing of the week. Had two good things happen this week. We got all the Bays Butte guys together that put it together, start working on a video. So that was great. And at the same time, there's a bunch of contractors and other federal agencies out. We're going to rebuild a diversion that's farther down the sort of Deep Creek 20 mile to protect some of the trout and to use water a little more efficiently in the irrigation system. And I thought, how cool is it that most of the little town of Adel had stopped for a second to tangibly work with things that didn't directly affect ranching, wild horses, trout, birds, that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not lying. Still all helps the rancher, but I took a moment and thought it's an amazing amount of time that ranchers put their time into free of charge for conservation efforts and wildlife. And I just thought it was huge that I think everybody was involved in something that day that was not directly tied to the ranch. It was tied to the bigger ecosystem that we live in, and that was just awesome. And then my other big thing, best part of the week is as I moved into the high country real estate office.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's happening. I guess got to get this COVID sort of derailed me taking the test, so I got a little behind on my 150 hours, but they were a little nervous I wasn't going to show up, so I just it's all right. Well, I'll just move in and I'll be there. So it's I was trying to make the transition into real estate when Richard was born, so that sort of threw a wrench in it. So I'm gonna give her another run now.
Outstanding! Congratulations! That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Mr. Bigsby, Taco Master, what do you think?
Best thing of the week. Well, Kel and I got to go over and see my nephew this week in Pendleton briefly. Ivan's little boy, Rio. So that was a highlight. A lot of fun to get to see that little turd.
Exactly what I was going to say, that little turd.
Or at least full of it. And he's got good parents. They're both good with him. So
awesome.
And then I don't know what else. The best thing of the week, we finally got all the cow work done. Everything's turned out, and they can kind of take care of themselves for at least till hay's over. And an occasional salt and mineral run. Well, we don't have to deal with that anymore, so that's a relief. But like I said before, you're out of one frying pan and into another. So
yeah,
but
different grease. That's good. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Mr. Joel, in your shiny new hat, what do you have for us, good sir?
Well, the other day we got in 18 holes of golf took the girlfriend out golfing for her first time ever.
Oh, awesome.
And my brother and Junior played. 4 of us played. Yeah, it's a good time.
Excellent. Outstanding. Fun to play. Yeah, I like that course a lot. A lot of good memories there with those maniacs. So
The only problem is second hole is completely washed out. You should see that.
oh yeah, I saw some pictures.
Talk about redirecting the river. They're going to actually redirect that creek out there.
Oh wow.
Get it out of the way. So
they're going to run it around?
Course.
Oh, that's crazy. Wow.
No, it's just, I mean, so, the second hole goes down
Follows the
along
creek
the
on
right
the right.
sides that all those trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, after the flood, the creek directed a different way right through the fairway, so they got to put it back where
Gotcha.
it was.
Crazy, man. Crazy. Extra water hazards. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So that wrapping that part up, we'll talk about if Mr. Joel knows what movie he'd like to just bestow upon us for this coming episode. Have you thought anything about that, Mr. Joel?
Yeah, well, an old movie I really enjoyed and I've been meaning to watch it again for a couple of years now is The Great Outdoors. I was going to watch that. I was going to watch that this week, and might as well make that the homework assignment.
you bastard! Oh, go faster. Okay, yeah.
Starring John Candy and Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd. Oh,
and a big bear.
that's it. Yeah, big bear. Oh, fine, I'll make you a big sandwich. Yeah, that's the bat. Oh, that's about a 2-pounder. Yeah, that's bigger than I thought. Yeah, that's it. Never seen it. I'll be curious to see what that's all about. That'll be great. Yeah.
That's
That's awesome. I love that movie. It always makes me laugh. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, the haves and the have-nots, and wonderful. But awesome, guys. I thank you so much. This has been a really, really good talk this week. I think we had a lot of good weaving back and forth and some good conversation. I think, which is what I was certainly looking forward to this episode a lot, just to see everybody and get the good conversation. And I think we definitely nailed that. And I just want to thank everybody for that and their time and carving it out. I know everybody's busy, but I really appreciate it. It does me good every time we get to all talk and see each other. So I appreciate that. And I know everybody takes the time to listen, appreciates it too. But I think this week in particular, I'm extra proud of our conversation. So thank you for that.
And bonus, if you watch the YouTube video, you can watch Raleigh make tacos.
Yes. Coming next week, Cooking with Rawls. So send in your requests if you want them to make anything, maybe a creme brulee or whatever might come to mind. Let us know. We're getting fired up.
One thing that I would like to just throw out here, I think we need to maybe come up with another special guest sometime here to throw into the mix. Let's
yeah.
Whatever.
I've got a couple beating around in my brain, but certainly if anybody else has some other options too, we can talk about it this week and try to get somebody lined up. I think, or also obviously if anybody listening's got somebody they want to hear from, if they want to saddle up and come on in, be a reacher for the week, I'm more than happy to have you on as a guest. If you're serious enough to come on, I think it'd be great. So anybody out there listening, you want to come on, be a special guest? I know there's several people I've talked about that sometime we're going to have you on, but have no particular topic in mind. But we'll talk about it this week and see what we can get put together too. I think that's a great idea, Rawls. And I think we should do a cooking episode every once in a while too, with making or smoking something or making some tacos or whatever. I think it would be entertaining. So it's just crazy enough to work, man. Like the great thing is, we're making up the rules as we go, so it's hard to get them wrong.
It's the only way to go.
Hell's bells. Well, if nobody else has anything, we will get this episode wrapped up for this week. And again, this will be, find us on YouTube. You can find us wherever a podcast is found. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, you can email us or text us or call us or whatever. Smoke signals even work. We'll get back to you and we'll go from there. But I want to thank everybody on the podcast for your time, everybody for listening. And until next time, this has been the Far Reaches Podcast, and thanks for hanging out, kids.